All right, welcome to the Tactical Games podcast. We're here to talk about Mammoth. We're going to get into the carbine course, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the resurgence of the Tactical Games Sniper Challenge. Super excited to get into all those things. First thing, though, I just finally dried out. I think I finally got warm again, and then we got hit by this huge-ass cold front that just came through Texas. So first thing we're going to talk about is going to be Mammoth. So Sal's wanted to compete in this. So as somebody that's wanted to compete in this, I want you to ask the questions here, what you have for us, and then Jared and I can kind of step through kind of our experience and how it went and all that. So why don't you lead it off there?
Yeah, so I am super, I guess, excited for you guys, and congratulations on you guys doing a really good job for signing up so late. That's awesome to see, because it's really hard to step into a competition, much like Tactical Games, without knowing what to expect. I know you had Jared, but still, just being able for you to jump in with not a lot of long-range experience. Obviously, your physical fitness is fine, but that's pretty damn cool that you stepped in like that on short notice and just did it, man. You guys kicked butt.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know, can you explain what Mammoth is, like the competition itself?
Yeah. I'll go first. So it's a 3-day competition. You are shooting long range. I think the closest target that we shot was like 170 yards, and the farthest target we saw that weekend was 1,180.
Nice.
For primary, I don't know. The closest was probably about 170, but majority of your shots were 800 plus.
Ooh,
I think for primary.
It was probably like 680, I think was the closest one, but then it went out to 1108.
1108, yeah.
That ended up being a wrong distance. It was actually like 1,050 or something like that.
There you go. Yeah, and then so secondary shooter, I think the furthest target I saw that was just mine was 799 yards, and the closest was 170. So a little bit of pistol shooting. Not every stage had pistol. Every stage had rifle. They changed the round counts. Some were unlimited. Some were fixed round counts for pistol and for rifle. So you start the day Friday morning, 6 a.m. Everything that you have with you, everything on your back, you take it and you ruck. Our first ruck was just under 5 miles. We set out that day and shot 4 courses of fire. You ruck back 5 miles to like the start finish line. And what they don't tell you is then there's like another like 3/4 of a mile ruck that you have to take to go to where you're going to camp. Oh. That doesn't count for anything. Oh. So
you have to walk past it to get to the finish line and then walk back to it. And that's the worst.
One of the most demoralizing things was walking by and you saw people like setting up their camp, like waving at you, and you've still got another 3/4 of a mile to go to come back to it. So we got there after dark, set up. That night we knew we were getting rain. It started, I don't know, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, started raining that night, and it rained till probably 9:30 or 10 that next day. Ooh. I woke up with like 1.5 inches of rain in my tent, in a super small tent, everything.
Wait, real quick, did you guys have the same tent?
No.
No.
There was 2 separate tents. I wish, like, I couldn't even sit up in my tent. It basically, like, if I tried to set my arms up, they were getting wet because from all the condensation inside the tent.
There are a lot of people that share tents, though.
Yeah, what is your tent? I mean, body warm, right?
I mean, it would have seemed to have made sense. I was never cold. I was just wet the whole time.
Yeah. Nick and I have a level of fitness where we can carry an extra like 6 ounces sleep in our own tent.
Because the other thing is, like, it's not like you have access to a shower or you have access to anything. Like, you don't bring deodorant with you because that's extra weight that you don't want to carry around. I brought toothpaste and a toothbrush, and like, I smelled like shit the entire weekend. I'm very happy to admit that. But yeah, so then it continued on Saturday. I think our first ruck that we had was about 4 miles that day. And it rained the entire time. So just soaking wet.
So all the shooting stages, you were shooting in the rain?
Well, so no, it stopped raining. And then we got to our first stage, and there were like five squads that went through, and then the fog came in. And the fog was so bad that we had a ceasefire for like 4 hours.
I think I saw they posted on Instagram. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was like, so there was, yard markers. I think you could see out about 300 yards, but every one of the targets on the stage that we were on was past that. So we were on a rain delay or a fog delay for quite some time, and there was no wind and there was no sun. So nothing dried out. So we were all just soaking wet tents. There's some great photos of it. I'll post them if I can find them.
Humidity was like 98. You basically, if you took something out of your bag and hung it up, thinking it was crazy. Like you would have to. I've never experienced something like that because you couldn't just hang something up and it dry. like you had to shake it to like literally shake the water off of stuff, but it wouldn't. I mean, the stuff was hanging up for 4 hours, and it was just as wet when you took it down as when you put it up there. Like there was zero water being lost to the atmosphere there.
So what you guys are telling me is like your apparel really matters.
100%. Yeah, you're like making the right choice. And I was lucky enough to go in there with Jared, and Justin let me borrow his gear. So it was gear that came from an experienced person that had done it. So I got the right size 10, I had the right sleeping bag, I had the right sleeping mats and those kind of things. I did not necessarily pack the right gear to wear on my body, though. That's definitely something that going into next year I would change.
Next
a few
year?
things. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll tell you what, hey, my butt was a little hurt when I found out that you picked Jared. I was like, he's going to pick me, he's going to ask me, I'm going to say yes. And I saw Jared, I was like, well, that's a good pick, you know.
I just put it out in public. I didn't know you even wanted to do it. I didn't even know. Yeah, what I will tell you though is like long strides help. So having those little legs.
Yeah, that wouldn't have helped out. I would have slowed you down for sure. All right. So I'll have to find a short partner like myself to do well.
There you go.
So that's day 2 was the fog. Now day 3 Sunday. I'm sure you guys are tired.
on day 2, and kind of in our defense a little bit. On day 2, I think were we the last? No, we were the second to last
before the fog delay.
delay.
Yeah.
And on that stage, I think we found 1 target.
It was bad. It was bad. People say that they can't see targets in our lanes or can't see targets that we shoot. I mean, they intentionally are hiding those targets.
Yeah, and I mean, they're no paint, which is good because then the whole match, everybody's trying to look for just grayed out targets.
Yeah.
So that's perfect. But just sitting there looking into like basically a sea of fog, and we found one target.
I'm curious the discussion during that stage, like.
It's 6 minutes. There's a lot of time to discuss how we can't see anything. And then,
I had a bunch of rookie mistakes too, because like Jared's like, stop breathing through your mouth. I was breathing through my mouth and fogging up my glass. So it was just things that I needed to learn.
It's like, breathe down. Down. He like wiped off the back of the scope, and then like he lifted his head up, wiped off the back of the scope, and then went, just like breathed off, and I was like, wipe it off again.
Yeah. So that was day 2. We dealt with fog all day. I think we ended up getting a decent second stage after that, where it was much closer range, and we crushed that. Well, Jared's rifle went down first thing Saturday morning, actually probably Friday night on the ruck back.
It was Friday between the mover stage and that long range stage on Friday. So between stage 3 and stage 4, or maybe on stage 3, because I hit a lot of targets on stage 3.
That was the mover stage, yeah.
And then I did notice at the end, it was a bunch of movers and you could see impacts. I did notice, like, as we kept going, I was aiming considerably under the targets to hit them. But I thought, because there was that one mover at like 800 or 860. So I was shooting that one because I had the bolt gun. So I was shooting the further target. And then there was 2 movers closer up. And when mine went down, it would stay down for like 30, 45 seconds after 3 hits. So I would come and I would shoot one of the targets that Nick was shooting at. I'd hit it, once or twice, and then go back out to the long one. So I just thought, like, as I would come in and shoot the closer one, because mine ended up going down and like not coming back up for a long time. So I switched and was shooting one with Nick, and I started noticing, like, but I was dialed for 8 something, and it was like what,
I think, just under
600
4,
or something like that. So I was aiming a couple mils under it, but then I kept like aiming a little lower and a little lower and a little lower, and I just wasn't, everything was going fast, and I wasn't really thinking about it at the time. But got onto the next stage, and the guy, like, when we were done, I was shooting and not seeing anything, and like I should have been able to see splash. Like I asked Nick, I was like, hey man, watch my target and see if you see like trace or anything. And as soon as we were done, the guy's like, you're 7 mils over the target. Not tenths, 7 full mils over, which is 23 feet.
Yeah, is that 1,000?
At 1,000 yards. So I was 23 feet over the target, and then I spent until the last 2 shots of the match is when I finally found the 0 again, and my action screws had backed out.
Oh no.
And so it was just because there was another stage where we had like 2 or 3 minutes at the end of the stage, which is a good thing to kind of talk about before we go about when you start the competition. There is no I need to go to a zero bay. I think I lost my zero. You can't. So like you're in the competition starting the second you take a step.
Yeah.
There is no, I need to go to zero bay and re-zero my gun. My scope came loose, so I need to go zero. Like you're in it. There is no, so Nick would get done with his portion of shooting. And then in that last like 2 or 3 minutes of the stage, I would just pick something and start shooting at it to see if I could see an impact or like get any kind of clue where my bullet was going. And Saturday night, I tightened down the action screws because I saw that was loose. And then there was 2 stages on Sunday, and I ended up hitting like the smallest target of the whole match. My last 2 shots because I finally saw a trace and could correct off of it. But going into that, I had done a lot of things, which, I'm not upset at all about the gun going down because, like, with my ARs, I don't let anybody touch anything on my guns. Like, I build them from ground all the way up. I don't know anything about bolt guns, really. So I hadn't built that gun, so I didn't check any of the torques or the torque settings on anything. Nothing. And then about a week and a half or 2 weeks before we were going, there was a lot of reshuffle. Like I just brought a Ziploc bag full of crap, but there was like, we reshuffled our gear, changed scopes, did all this stuff. Nothing we went with was like proven over like 2 or 3 different range trips. Yeah. It was all just like, all right, zero's good, let's go. So like, that's typically something I would really suggest, or like definitely before any kind of match, whether it's Mammoth, tactical games, whatever, is like, don't just build your gun and go shoot it once and call it good. Like, build your gun, shoot it, zero it, put it in your truck like you normally would, drive home, put it up, take it back out to the range, check it again, like 2 or 3 times to the range to check zero to make sure nothing shifts on you, make sure like torque values are good, the screws aren't coming loose, like whatever. And especially before, like, the salt in the wound was walking roughly 30 miles with a rifle that I knew was completely worthless. So like every now and then there'd be a stage where like I had to shoot so that Nick could keep shooting because it was like you had to alternate. So like I would basically just make sure I was pointing my gun in a very safe situation at like 60, 70 yards away and just like boom, 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 and then let Nick shoot.
That's crazy how well you guys did with that issue that happened, because you guys did really well. You guys finished, and you guys were what place overall?
Third, I think 30th, 32nd.
That's crazy. That's really good.
We're just like 10 points out of, I don't know, 13th place, 10th place, something like that. So anyway,
2 functioning rifles. I think we definitely could have.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I was lucky enough that Jared let me borrow one of his competition rifles, and that thing was incredible.
So you running bolt or gas?
I ran a gas gun. I ran a 223, and with hand loads, Jared's hand loads, and it performed incredibly. After getting to know the reticle, so I shot the Mil XT in the ATACR.
Ooh, that's a good reticle right there.
It's a 6-32 or 6-36.
Tremor. We're learning.
Tremor. Sorry, Tremor. I thought it
was
Tremor 3. Tremor 3 reticle.
Yeah.
We're learning. And I learned what all the little dots inside the little things mean. So now I know. And I can shoot moving targets. And I feel like Zach, I'm such a learner.
We walked up and I was like, all right, so some things I haven't told you about the scope. That horizontal line, there's numbers, that's not mils, that is miles an hour. And I was like, so halfway through the stage, I hadn't fully explained it yet, but I was like, hey, aim 3 miles an hour. He had no idea what that meant. Because like I was getting hits at 3 miles an hour on the far one. So I figured out how fast they were. Exactly. It was like 2.8 miles an hour is what they were moving. But I'd figure out how fast they were moving, and I was trying to convey that to him. And like it, anyway, I should have.
So you're running bolt gun. What kind of bolt gun were you running?
6 GT.
6 GT. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. With a Night Force scope, but a 6-32 or a 5-25.
7-35.
7-35.
Yeah, 7-35.
The ATACR. So Trimmer 3. Which anyway, Nick, that reticle looks super, super busy, and like Nick can attest to this because he learned like 3 days before we left how to use the reticle. But like as soon as you realize what all those dots are, it all clears up and nothing looks busy anymore. Yeah. Like you really like having all that extra information in the scope, because you don't really have to, as soon as you find out wind's blowing 4 miles an hour and you know what those dots mean, then you can keep that hold all the way out, and you don't have to really think about wind or remember a second mil value for wind, any of that other stuff. So it's definitely the way to go for a competition like that, or at least inside like 700-800 yards. Further than that, you probably should dial anyway, but yeah.
Well, having a bipod, having bags, having like actual support when you're shooting too, that made all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
So I was happy. I was actually happy with my performance until Sunday, first stage. We got on and we were shooting, and that was when we had that nasty sun glare that came up in the. We got into a truck, and then the sun was coming just over, so that sun was just like right in your eyes as you were trying to shoot. But after the stage, like I knew I was pulling good shots. I knew I was on target. Like everything seemed to be going good, but I was missing it. Hadn't happened to me all weekend. If I was pulling good shots, I was hitting all weekend. And I came out and I saw that my turret was dialed to the negative.
Oh.
So when we were rucking, it's just one of those things. Like I didn't think. I've got all my Night Force scopes are all enclosed turrets, so I have caps on them. So I didn't think to look at it when I got out, but it had rubbed against the strap of my ruck and gone negative. So I was shooting, low on every one of the targets, which sucks. But
so my work Night Force, I have a 0 stop on there, so I set mine to that for that reason, because the backpack I carry, it's moved a little bit.
Yep.
So I set it right to that 0 stop on 0, so it doesn't move past that negative.
So it'll always stay.
It always does. So it can't go past that because of that reason.
Oh, that's interesting. So you just aim low if you need to go low on a value, or do you not ever dial?
So if I have to change my 0, like I'll have to obviously kind of loosen up that 0 stop to go back, but generally in San Antonio, it's pretty easy to keep that consistent 0.
Yeah.
The weather doesn't change dramatically.
Yeah.
Except for today.
So he has a 0. The scope has a 0 stop, but I set the 0 stop at negative 1.5 mils.
Yeah.
Reason being, if you shoot at a 90-degree angle and you dial negative a mil, you're basically traveling parallel with your line of sight. And then you add a mil. Anyway, nobody's gonna understand this. Some people will, but you add a mil to the windage line now because your gun's at 90 degrees, and then your holds are pretty much on for elevation. So if normally you're holding like a mil at 300, you hold 2 mils on your windage line. That is now your elevation line.
With your rifle canted.
So it's basically dial negative a mil, and then you add a mil on the windage value for what is now your elevation value, and you'll get hits on like C-zone targets out to like 600 yards. So that's
good
why
information there.
I've always left it to where you can. The 0 stop on my guns aren't a 0 stop. They're like usually between 1.5 to 2 mils negative that you can dial. So
I knew that too. I just didn't. I wanted to make sure Jared did.
Yeah. That was going to be a quick explanation if you needed to know it. If we rolled up to a stage, I was just going to be like, "This is what you're going to do. Don't think about it. Just do it."
So what's a piece of gear besides your gun, your rifles, pistols, all that stuff that you think you couldn't do without at Mammoth? Like you had to take with you. If you could take one piece of gear that you needed that whole weekend, what would it be?
Boots. Like the right footwear, because you will jack yourself up if you do not have the right footwear. Because you ruck about 30 miles.
So what kind of boots do you wear? Because people are going to want to know.
I wore Under Armour boots. They're somewhere around here. You remember the name of the boots?
I think I could smell them somewhere around here. Smell them.
They're somewhere around here. Let's see.
I don't know what that like. There were some definitely. There are some messed up feet, though. Like we saw a couple of guys in our group had some pretty gnarly feet afterwards.
There they go. We need to frame these right here.
That's called, yeah.
Jerry, what about you? What piece of gear for you that you couldn't do without?
I couldn't do without. I mean, the shoes were a big thing because I hate wearing shoes that cover my ankles. And I took those anyway because Nick told me they were waterproof and they're not. And I took those anyway, and those actually ended up being really, like, obviously we shoot for Under Armour, but so this isn't like, I would say they suck if they sucked. I wouldn't say they sucked, I just wouldn't talk about them. But those boots are actually awesome.
Legit.
Super light. I told Nick when we were going, I was like, man, if they took this sole and put it on like a shoe, I'd wear it all the time. I don't like boots, but I like those. Other than that, I mean, taking enough food, like, we had enough, and I eat two of the meals, like what dehydrated meals or whatever.
Yeah. Summit or one of those. Yeah.
I eat 2 of those for breakfast, and I have like bars I eat all day, and then I eat 2 dinners. And I really feel like coming from where we come from, we understand how much calories you actually need during the day when you're exerting yourself.
Yeah.
And I saw people that were not they were eating like one meal, hardly anything during the day. Ooh. And then you could see because I told Nick right before we started, I was like, all these people are about to run off. I didn't say it that nicely, but I was like, we're going to let them run off and we're not going to run. I was like, we're going to walk like the first mile to get warmed up. And then we'll, start jogging the downhills and whatever to keep the pace. But, over the course of the weekend, I mean, we never really talked about that afterwards, but, did you notice how many people were very easily staying way ahead of us?
Oh yeah.
On Friday, all of a sudden we're barely meeting time hacks
100
at the end and
100%.
stuff. And it's a calories thing.
Yeah.
Like they're just literally running out of energy.
Hydration and calories. Yeah. Like I was at 4,500 to 4,800 calories a day that I was taking in. And like you're carrying all the food with you. So dehydrated meals were a must. I had like one that I didn't have to jet boil, that as soon as I woke up, I would eat it. It was just like granola and stuff. And then as soon as I had access to jet boil, I'd cook up the biscuits and gravy or the eggs or whatever it was. But yeah, that food is definitely important, because if you're not eating, like it's just like working out outside. If you don't have food or fuel in your body, you're going to run ragged eventually. So
is the ruck score part of your score, or is it just completion?
No, it's just no, yes and no. There is no score to your ruck time. There is just a 16-minute per mile deal. Now it sounds really slow, but there are some really freaking big hills.
The elevation was gnarly.
So you have to not run down the hills, but you have to like kind of jog down the hills so that you can bank time, because you'll run down the hill at like what sounds like a slow pace, but remember you got like 60 pounds on your back. Probably a 11 or 12 minute pace.
Yeah.
When you're kind of shuffling or running down. Yep. But then when you're walking uphill, you're going at like an 18:30 to 19-minute pace walking up the hill. So you have to balance it out to where you make sure you get in under. And I think we were averaging like 14:45 to 15-minute miles. But whenever you finish, the shooting order is picked as you come in. So
if we all leave from point A, when we get to point B, whatever order we come in, you get to choose what order you want to shoot in.
Oh, nice.
So that isn't the order that you shoot in. You get to pick. So if there were 7 squads with us, or 7 teams with us, so you could say we want to shoot 4th or we want to shoot 3rd. But if all those slots are taken, obviously like you're shooting first or you're shooting last. Nobody wants to shoot last and nobody wants to shoot first.
Shooting first sucks. And Jared explained it to me and it made sense when we got there. You get there and you have a couple minutes, they'll do a stage brief and then you're first to go.
Ooh.
So it's good that you have the time afterwards to like, whatever you want. But like if your mags aren't jammed, which they have rules about when you can load mags, carrying loaded magazines, stuff like that on base, because it does take place on a military facility. They managed to make it uphill constantly, which I don't know how they did that, but I felt like we were never really going downhill very often. I remember the first day, the 5-mile ruck in, I thought we climbed the whole time. So I was like, oh, this ruck back's going to be easy. It was uphill the whole time. And it wasn't. Like, there's something about a site where it looks like things are going to be uphill and they're not. They're actually flat. I don't know if it was just me, but that
yeah, that's 100%. I mean, I noticed that a long time ago, but you'll feel like you're either walking on flat ground. If you feel like you're walking on flat ground, you're walking a little downhill. If you feel like you're walking a little uphill, it's flat. And yeah, that's definitely a thing.
So any point did any of you two feel like, hey man, like it's time to call it? Like I'm smoked. I can't mentally and physically, like I'm a liability. It's time for me to throw in the towel.
So it got cold. Like I didn't get dry until Sunday when we left it, when we were in the car for like probably 45 minutes or an hour. There were definitely points where I was like, why am I doing this? But I think like, obviously not wanting to let Jared down, and Jared wouldn't have given a shit, right? Like we were out there to have fun, but and I didn't want to quit. I didn't want that to be the story that came out of it. So there were definitely points where I was mentally like, why are you doing this? But I don't think I was ever gonna actually throw in the towel for it.
Nice, Jared.
No, there was one hill that so with the fog and stuff, they ended up the match director had made a very good decision with the way they handled the fog, because there was a fog delay. We only shot 2 stages that day, so the last day, normally, I'm not going to go into it, but like normally there's a certain way you shoot the last 2 stages. They threw those out, and we just shot the 2 stages that we were supposed to shoot on Saturday. So that way everybody shot the same stages. But what that meant is that we had to ruck basically the same ruck twice.
Yeah.
And there was a hill that we had to ruck that was it was just in a terrible spot. It was right at the end of the ruck, and it was like 3/4 of a mile to a mile long. Not super steep. I mean, I guess kind of towards the end of it, it gets a little steeper, but it was just like constant for a mile, just like uphill. And you knew that you couldn't drop under like a 16 or 16:30 just because it was so far. Even if you've banked plenty of time. But other than that, one thing that I have always done is I keep a pair of long johns. So long johns is like, I don't know what that's what we call it in Texas.
Yeah, long johns are what we call them up north. Yeah.
So I keep a pair of long johns that is non-negotiable, stays dry. Keep them in a Ziploc bag inside of a I don't know what you call them, but they're the waterproof roll-up bags that like we kept all of our stuff in. So inside of that, I keep a Ziploc bag with the 4.0 long johns, like the super warm Under Armour long johns. And no matter how cold I get during the day, those do not come out of that bag. Because like you can survive when the sun's up, especially if you just keep moving, whatever. But so I always knew during the day, I always knew that you can go back, like as soon as this is over and I get to lay down, I'm putting these dry long johns on and I'm going to be dry when I sleep. But then immediately when I wake up, those come off, go straight back into the Ziploc bag. I put the wet clothes back on, and the first 30 minutes really sucks. But then you always have something dry to sleep in. So that's kind of how you get through because everything was wet. There was nothing.
Constantly.
It was the only thing that was dry was those long johns and that sleeping bag. And everything else was super, super wet.
It seems like every Mammoth, there's always really bad weather, like rainy, cold. Every time they put this match on, there's always bad conditions.
The date range that they've chosen for it for the first one is like, it's from what I understand, always early to mid-January. So it's like almost guaranteed it's going to be cold. But it was definitely something that I would like to do again. I'd definitely like to place better next time, just because I had fun. I know I'm physically capable of doing it, so I'd like to give it a go again. I already asked Jared if he wanted to be my partner for the one coming up here in April or May, so we'll see if he's
Justin wasn't too happy about that. So a little bit about the scoring. Pistol shooting is really how Nick and I did as well as we did. There was some small. They weren't real small targets for us, but I could see how a lot of people in the field didn't even get a hit on them. There was a 75% or whatever at 98 yards, and I think between the two of us, we dropped 2 or 3 shots on that target. So like each hit on that steel is worth the same amount of points as a 1,000-yard shot is. So I would say we definitely shot pistols probably. I mean, there's no way to know, but like in the top 2 or 3 in the match. So that's really what kept us definitely in the match. But yeah, I mean, I knew that from the first time I competed with Justin. I think we finished 6th or 7th. But pistol shooting is extremely important, and some people just like blow through it. And it's like, man, pull us out, like take your time and get your hits. The rifle hits are cool and glamorous, but they count just as much as the pistol hits. So
they did do something that I thought was cool. If they had multiple shots in the same array, meaning like if you were shooting at a piece of steel, the first shot counted for more than the second or third.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So like it was 3 points for your first shot, so you actually had to know, and then your second and third follow-ups were 1 point, which I thought was really cool. The pistol shooting was definitely like it was inverted from what we're used to. We're used to big rifle targets and small pistol targets. These were big pistol targets and small rifle targets. I think the smallest target I shot at distance besides the movers was like 12 or 14 inches at 400 yards, 500 yards.
And I've heard in this match that the target sizes from year to year will kind of make kind of swings, like where one year they'll be a little bit bigger, the next year they're a little bit smaller, next year a little bit bigger, next year a little bit smaller. I definitely think we hit a small year here. Like one of the teams in our group was from the AMU, and
that's cool.
They came off the stage laughing at the size of a target that was like 800. And because I remember I found the target. I was like, hey Nick, there's, and like explained where it was. And he was like, yeah, right. And
I ranged it. It was $7.99. It was a like, if you could imagine a plus sign, it was 3 inches wide and 15 inches tall in the center post.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it was like basically 3 inches wide and 15 this way.
Yeah.
And then 3 inches wide and 15 this way.
Yeah.
And it was at 800.
Yeah, $7.99.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was
I didn't even pull the trigger at it.
no way. There's no, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, it's pretty cool. I think from the Tactical Games community, it's awesome to see you, especially Nick, being the owner, and Jared, former owner, one of the best competitors of all time, to see you guys step out of the Tactical Games and do these other competitions like Mammoth and other two-gun matches. It's awesome to see that because you don't see that from other competitions. You don't see people from, I'm not going to give you names, but like other matches come to Tactical Games, but you see Tactical Games competitors stepping out to do other matches. I think that's awesome because it makes us more well-rounded and better at other aspects.
Yeah, cool. I mean, everything that we take from, like me personally, if I go out and shoot any other shooting discipline, shooting sport, it's to learn and to make our sport a little bit better and see what we can pick up. And I like learning. It's one of the reasons that I like hanging out with Jared and like hanging out with Justin so much is like I get to learn things from those guys. So anytime I go to a match, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to learn from somebody that I'm shooting with. Gil's been a great instructor. You've been a great instructor. I'm lucky enough to have a lot of great people around me. So that's a cool thing for sure.
So people are going to want to know we're not going to have 800 or 799 yard shots this for Tactical Games. So
we already said 700 is going to be the max distance this year, so you don't have to worry about going any further than that. But I'm going to see if I can get one of those ruler targets just to make people laugh. You can identify it in an optic. Honestly, a 1 to 10, I don't think you would have been able to pick it up in a 1 to 10.
Wow.
It was that small.
It was. I never saw it in my binoculars. I only saw it when I saw it in my scope at like 25x.
Yeah, I was at 22x and I could see it. All right, so we'll jump into the next topic here. So obviously there are opportunities in this space for training seminars and the different courses that we're putting on. So from what I understand, Jared, you're looking at putting on a carbine course. We call it a long range course, but I think in reference to long range in the tactical games, not long range like ELR, long range like some of the PRS guys shoot. So you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. The 2-day deal, me and Sal basically texted for like 5 seconds about it, but the dates are pretty set. We're just working with one of the ranges to get a place to shoot. It's RPR, but the way they do their range rentals there is a little different. So we're trying to get a price nailed down on that. But it'll be a 2-day course. First day, doing everything that nobody wants to do. It's not the glamorous side of the class where you have to come in and you're like, I shot 1,000 rounds through my gun. Those classes. Anyway, I'm not going into that. But day one will be probably taking apart 9 out of 10 people's guns that show up, putting them back together correctly, teaching everybody like there are, Nick, from the first time you ever showed up to now, the 900 different things you have to know how to mount a scope correctly.
100%.
The things that you have to do, even your adjustable gas block that's too close to your handguard. The way everything is set up on your gun matters. And I think I was talking to you and Hepner, or maybe you and Hepner, one of y'all and Hepner was involved in there. But I was like, I would say pretty conservatively that 80% of the people that show up to the tactical games show up with a rifle that is not capable of hitting a target at 600 yards because of either the way they've mounted their scope. They have a QD attachment that the screw is pressed up against their gas block. They have something about their gun is off. And even if they pull a perfect shot, they're not going to hit. But like the barrel is capable, all of the parts are capable of doing it. The way they have it set up is not capable. Pulling your feet per second off the back of your ammo box and saying, hey, my ammo is going, 3,200 feet per second. It's not. Unless you have unless you have a 26-inch barrel, it's not happening.
Bolt action.
Yeah, I will be bringing a chrono for that class. Yes. I have the Garmin chrono at home, and definitely get everybody some good numbers for their Kestrel, whatever they use for their ballistic data.
Yeah, but basically day one, probably have printouts of the top 4, 5, 6 common reticles. Teach people how to use reticles. Teach people how to use their app.
It surprises me how many people don't know how to use their reticle. They just say, I'm holding a little bit higher. I'm like, you have these mills here that are like perfect math.
This information that tells you where to hold.
Yeah. That's so helpful.
So, the difference between MOA and mill, why you would want one or the other, why it kind of doesn't matter for what we're doing. As long as you know the yardage value of those lines, that's really like the basics of it. Then we can go a little bit further into it, but like, make no mistakes, this isn't like a PRS class. This is a carbine as it pertains to the tactical games class. But the goal is day one, get everybody's stuff set up correctly. Go over the basics of how to use a reticle, maybe a little further than just the basics. Get everybody's stuff chronographed, get all of the apps set up correctly. Second half of the day, kind of go over positional work, which you don't need to shoot any further than about 100 yards to get really good at shooting long range. Anything beyond really 200 yards starts just becoming data and knowing where to aim. So basically teach people how to practice. So that way when they leave the class, they can leave like armed with the knowledge on how to get better on their own. Because like, if I'm not teaching you anything other than just like giving you direct corrections in a course, you have to come back for another course to get any better. But if I teach you how to practice, you can go home and get better. Then on the second day, actually going out and shooting at those distances, and people that have never think that their gun can't hit at 600 yards are going to get hits, and actually like put it into practice and show them, all of this stuff matters.
And they're going to see how important it is to have good data from that chronograph, because if you put any little wrong number in that ballistic calculator, it's going to be off. Like for instance, Lupa and I went to the range. I chronoed her new rifle, and she was getting first round impacts out to 500, just going off that good data that we plugged into her calculator. And it's amazing how well those work. People will see that at the course.
Jared, we went out, and the one practice day that we got after we put the rifle together, this little piece of tech is fantastic.
Oh, by the way. Yeah, these are awesome.
This I was very impressed. Impact 4000 from Vortex. Yes. So we set all that up, set it up on the rifle, and he had me zero the rifle and pull a couple shots, and we moved out, and then we got to a full size IPSC at, I think it was 570. Yeah, 570, and he was like, shoot at that. Perfect shot, dead center. It was awesome. I don't shoot that well traditionally, so I was excited about it. He's like, go for the head box and first pull, like just getting accurate information, knowing what your gun's going to do, having accurate chrono data, accurate load data, like all of that stuff all put together. First round headshot at 570. Like nice. For me, that's pretty cool. I was excited about that. So having a good teacher teaching you the right things that are applicable to the sport is incredibly important. So I think that course is going to be awesome, and look forward to seeing what you guys can do with that for sure.
People are going to ask, like, what experience should they have coming into this course?
I mean, I think anybody would be able to learn. I mean, the thing is you're going to be teaching part of the class, and when you're teaching, I'm listening, learning stuff, and hopefully vice versa a little bit. And but anything from, if you show up with your scope in a box and your rifle is separate, all that might mean is that we don't have to take your crap apart and put it back.
100% agree with that. Oh yeah.
So, like, even if you're bringing us parts and we're putting it together for you, that's just fine. In fact, like I said, it might just save us the time of taking your stuff apart. Actually setting a receiver up level and then leveling the reticle and the deal, like, people are going to find out.
Oh yeah.
Once you do it, that the reason you've been missing is because that bottom half of your reticle is like 5 feet to the right of where it should be, at 600 yards, and you're missing because your scope isn't level.
Yeah.
I will never let anybody touch my rifle setup. Like, I mount every scope because I do not trust anybody else. Like, the job I do is very precise. You're the same way.
Yep.
And that stuff really matters.
It's I've explained it a few times, and they talk about a lot in engineering, but stacking tolerances. If everything is just like good enough, the finished product will not be good enough. Everything has to be exact all the way across, because even if you think it's exact, it's still off by a little bit. So you're still stacking a little bit of a tolerance across everything, but at least you're minimizing it as much as possible. So
no, that's great. Looking forward to that course for sure, and you'll hear more about us or more from us on that course on the Tactical Games social media channels and through the newsletter and stuff like that. So now we're going to talk about the thing that we're here to talk about. Big drum roll, excitement. A lot of people have been asking about it. We are going to be bringing back the Tactical Games Sniper Challenge in 2024 for one match. We did this last year with Tac-2 Gun, and it worked really well. We're going to do it this year with Sniper Challenge, and we're pretty stoked about it. So this one, 2024 Sniper Challenge, is going to be at Government Training Institute. So GTI is in Barnwell, South Carolina. Incredible facility. One of my favorites that we've ever done matches at. They do a fair amount of sniper challenges out there and different sniper comps out there. I'm excited to put the Tactical Games twist on that for sure.
Same.
So the date for that is going to be June 15th and 16th. The John Hatcher, who's been around Tactical Games for some time now, actually placed at GTI last year in the Tactical Games.
In Men's Elite, yeah.
In Men's Elite.
I think he took third.
He's also performed very well at the Sniper Challenges over the past couple of years. He owns Sun Shadow, is the name of his company, and Sal are going to be putting that match on for us.
Yeah, those that know John's awesome, very talented gas gun shooter. He brings a wealth of knowledge and awesome. He shot a variety of gas gun matches and kick butt those, and he's going to bring some really cool stages for you guys. And along with myself, I plan on testing every stage and shooting a lot to make sure that you have a really good experience. It's gonna be a fun time.
So I think the idea here and kind of what we talked about is, and without like naming any names, Sal competes in a ton of different SWAT challenges, right? And you're primarily the sniper.
For sure.
And that is your occupation. That is what you do for a living.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, so hoping to bring some tactical side to these. So all the LE guys out there, sign up for the match. You're going to have good stages that are very similar to what I've experienced and some of the SWAT competitions with a little bit of a twist in the tactical games in there. So it's going to be a good time. Definitely ask questions before the match if you're interested in some information as far as like what to expect.
Yeah, one of the things that always was kind of off-putting for people for Tac-2 Gun and a lot of questions that we got, and the same with Sniper Challenge, was what the fitness requirements of it are going to be. So you can expect there will not be anything heavier than 100 pounds that you have to lift off the ground. The fitness will be moving your body through those buildings. In most cases, you don't need a lot more than that. You'll be carrying all the gear that you're going to be shooting with. So if I have a loadout and I want to bring a tripod, I want to bring a bag, whatever you want to bring, you're going to be able to bring with you. I will tell you the round count is going to lend towards like an SPR DMR match more than like a bolt, than wanting to shoot a bolt platform. We're not going to allow magnum calibers just to protect our steel, but the competition is going to be open for bolt. We're not going to put requirements on weapon systems. You're going to be able to come out there and shoot what you want. There'll be some finite rules on that, but within reason. I'm excited about it. We've taken a lot of the feedback that we've gotten from sniper challenges in the past, and we've taken a lot of feedback from other people that are doing other things and seen some other things, and I think we're going to be able to put on a really, really killer sniper challenge. I'm very excited about that.
So this match is pretty cool because you have tag games competitors that could bring what they use for tactical games and get this practice in if they are struggling on the long range stages. If those stages are crushing you, say at a regular regional event, sign up for this match and you could get your practice in here at long ranges, fast 2-gun stages, and it'll be really good for you. Yeah. And did you mention it's a partner event too?
Yeah, it will be. Yeah, so it'll be a partner format. So there won't be any individuals. It'll be all team, and there won't be like a gas bolt it'll be run whatever you want on the team. The furthest targets that we're going to have out there are going to be 800 yards. So there's no need to bring into something, if you're eyeing that like really high power, like 6 GT or something like a really powerful bolt gun. I don't think you're going to necessarily need it. I don't think you want anything too heavy because you are going to be walking up and down the stairs that are GTI. Like there's a lot of physicality in that place without us having to introduce any external stuff.
And day 2 is going to be a little bit more moving than that.
Yeah. So those of you that experienced the sniper challenges previously, day 2 is going to be a long foot movement. So if you can imagine grabbing all your gear, everything that you've got, everything that you're going to need for that day, including all the ammo, and setting off, and then shooting from different positions around GTI. Again, that's going to be climbing stairs. It's going to be moving through ladder wells. It's going to be working together with your teammate to ensure that those things happen. If you competed in GTI last year, you ran through one of those buildings. It's just a cool atmosphere. It's a cool place. I don't think there's another shooting facility like it in the country. If there is, I've never seen it. So definitely be on the lookout for that one. We're going to announce it over the next couple of days. That by the time this podcast comes out, it'll be announced, and you guys will be able to sign up for it online.
And people are going to ask, should I bring a bolt gun or a gas gun? I would definitely lean towards a gas gun.
Yep.
As I've competed in matches that are more gas gun heavy, a bolt gun would have definitely been a disadvantage.
Yeah.
For this match, I would recommend bringing your actually tactical game setup would be perfect. Yep. Or like a SPR style setup.
Yeah. I think 1 to 10 is going to serve you very well. Yep. Like you said, a gas system. If you have an 18-inch barrel, like your tactical games build will suit you well. Because what I shot at Mammoth was a tactical games rifle besides the comp. Outside of that, it could absolutely
it was
be used.
18 inch instead of, but other than that, it would put a different barrel on it, and that's the same gun I usually use.
Yeah.
So
you can be effective at those ranges with a rifle like that. So no need to buy new gear for this. This is something that you can use your rifle that you already have. Think about like the carbine stages that we run at typical tactical games events. It'll be a lot like those. So a lot of cool, fun, fast shooting with far shooting involved in it. And there will be pistol too. We will have an element of pistol involved in not every stage, but most of the stages.
So questions.
Let's hear it.
Y'all are the ones programming this now. Well, questions, and let's talk about one other thing. But one, is there going to be like a kind of a primary, secondary, where there's one person is going to be shooting smaller, further targets, another person closer in type secondary spotter type targets, or is it just like everybody, like, can both people show up with a tactical games rifle and hit targets?
Yes.
Or do you need to have one person that has like a 6 Creedmoor AR-10 and then another person that has a 1 to 10 tactical games rifle, and then you're good? Or if both people show up with 1 to 10s, are you going to be okay?
Both people showing up to 1 to 10s, you'll be okay.
Okay.
There is different divisions. So there'll be like an open division that you have to have a 15-pound plate carrier.
I thought you said 50.
15-pound plate carrier. And then the next division is 8. It's 8 pounds that we talked about.
Yep.
And then there's a slick division for those that don't want to wear a plate carrier. But yes, you won't be at a disadvantage if you come with your tactical game setup.
Yep.
In my opinion, it depends on what division you sign up for. But like if I was shooting this match, I'm going to run my 223 with a 4 to 16 Night Force probably on it. So that's what I'm going to run. So.
Oh, that's awesome. And like I found now that the right ammo makes a difference in a gun too.
Oh yeah. I think it's going to be cool for people to see what these ARs are capable of. Like,
100%,
especially out to 800. People are going to be shocked that, man, I hit that target at 800.
Drilled the target at 800 too. Yeah, for sure.
Next question. So we got that out of the way. 2 ARs is going to be preferable over, a bolt gun being in there. Now, talk a little bit about, because I think, when we did the sniper challenges in the past, a lot of people came in with a lot of questions about what is the fitness going to be. Then kind of towards the end, the fitness went in a direction that, I'll just say it, I didn't really agree with the way I owned it at the time, and stuff like that. But I didn't really agree with the direction that the fitness went in there at the end. So maybe talk a little bit more about what it is not. Because before, I think people had a perception where they're like, oh, this is just the tactical games, but with long rifles instead. So maybe talk about maybe what's a typical stage going to be like, and am I going to have to lift a 200-pound bag? And or you said 100. Am I going to be picking that up and putting it over a yoke?
Right.
For 30 reps? Like, what is the fitness more going to look like? Or am I just picking up a bag and running up a couple flights of stairs and then shooting, stuff like that? What will the fitness kind of look like? And how is it more like applicable to, say, like what Sal does for a living type thing?
No, that's a great question. And exactly the answer that you provided is what we're looking at. The fitness needs to be applicable to something that would be real world. Instead of making it so hard that we're edging people out because of it, what's going to edge people out here is their ability to shoot. Right? Like, this is a shooting competition that's going to have a small fitness element in it, unlike the tactical games that you need to be equally strong and good at shooting, right? So that's a 50-50. This is going to be like, I would say an 80-20, and the 20% is like, you have to get your ass upstairs. You have to get your ass through things, under things, over things. Your gear, the weight that you have, the external load that you have is not going to be heavy, and it'll be shared between a teammate. So if it's 100 pounds, you can figure each people will have 50 in that.
So if you're not fit, you will survive. So let's say you're off the couch. You're off the couch. You're going to be able to come and compete. You're going to be able to come and have a good time. But you're also probably going to be breathing a lot harder when you're shooting, stuff like that. If you're extremely fit, you're just not going to be breathing as hard when you're shooting.
Right.
So it's like a stress shoot more than a physical competition.
It'll be an impediment. It'll never knock you on your ass. That's not the intention. It shouldn't be 30 rounds back and forth over a yoke before you go and shoot. It's going to be, get this X object up a couple flights of stairs before you move your body up a couple flights of stairs before you ultimately go and shoot.
So carrying a real world load.
Yep.
May be expressed through something that isn't, because it's like, you don't want somebody to finish the stage and be like, that isn't real life, because you had me carrying a 75-pound sandbag. Well, that we don't have a ruck with 75 pounds of gear in it.
Correct.
So you're subbing in a 70-pound sandbag or whatever.
Exactly.
So I think that's one thing to hammer home, is what is the fitness going to look like, and how is this? It shares tactical games, but it's not a standard tactical games.
It's not a 50-50 physical shooting. It's going to be definitely, I say 80-20 because I don't want people to think there's not going to be a physical element, because there will be a physical element, and that is going to be like, if you've been there, you've seen those stairs. Like those stairs, Hepner came off the stair stage and was like, screw that. I think he even cussed. He said, I'm never doing that again. And like, it's tough. That it is a tough facility. So if you're okay getting up and down stairs, getting over objects, getting through things, climbing ladders, you're going to be fine there. That's the physical side of this, is going to be getting your heart rate up through movement and then going and shooting.
So the physical side is choosing your intensity.
Correct.
Anybody can walk upstairs.
It's
just at what intensity you're willing to do that.
Exactly.
Perfect.
For like LE guys, it's probably gonna be similar to like a scenario of like having to get into position quickly with your tripod and set up your gun and get a shot off. And that stress comes from you sprinting that spot, having to get settled in, and you feel your heart rate. It's going to be very similar to that, kind of having to set up fast, and the stress comes from self-induced. And then also your partner, you could not get along with your partner in that middle of the stage, and you're stressed because he's missing, and you start missing because he's stressed, and that communication matters. And I think being able to control your stress and your heart rate is going to be very crucial in these stages.
And there will be things that we will do on the clock to induce stress.
For sure.
That are not like, we're not going to come up and mess with people, but there will be things that will induce stress on the clock too. Cool. And then what other questions you got there, Jared? That was a good one.
Second day. So is this the format, for those that probably weren't around Sniper Challenge like earlier on, run and gun type, like what's the structure look like? So if we're covering long distances, what are we going to be doing that day?
So, and I know what Jared's driving at here. One of the things that will happen Saturday is there will be like an 800 meter, we won't call it a foot race, but you are going to run 800 meters. And that 800 meter is not going to be for score, but the time that happens during that 800 meter is going to set how you set off, the order in which you set off on the ruck the next day, to determine, like, to help ensure that people aren't running into the back of the shooters in front of them.
So Sal and I competed in the first tactical games Sniper Challenge, and that's what the day one. Remember, we ran out of the bay. It was part of the stage, but like we ran out of the bay, ran up a hill, ended up probably half a mile maybe total, and then came back, and that was a separate time that they kept, so that way on day two they could flight us on how fast we were. But so structure being, you start at one stage, and when you're done with that stage, then you ruck to the next.
Correct.
Is the ruck going to be scored, or is there just time hacks? Like what are we looking?
There will be a total time. So you will have a start and finish that will be at the same point for the ruck. So the ruck will be a score.
Okay.
And there will be stoppage times when you stop if you do run into somebody.
So it does your let's say I shoot a stage and me and Justin just burn down a stage because me and Justin already decided we're doing this. But so let's say we start our first stage, we're done in a minute.
Yep.
Do we tear off and we can run to the next stage, or do we have to stay there for a specific amount of time before we leave? And then as we're shooting stages, do we, if we're done early, can we take off to the next stage, or do we have to stay there a prescribed amount of time before we leave? Basically what I'm getting at is the shooting time part of our overall time, or do you have to stay at a stage for 5 minutes?
No, your shooting time will be part of your overall time.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you're done shooting that stage, you're going to show cleared your RO. You're going to go through whatever clearing procedure needs to happen, and then you're going to step off and you're going to move to your next stage.
Okay.
Yeah. It's one of the things that we saw was people getting backed up from taking too much time. So we really want to avoid that at all possible. Setting up your tripod will be on the clock. It's going to be you're going to start like we did at Mammoth, everything in your hands, and then 3, 2, 1, go, and you're going to run up to where you're going to shoot. And we're definitely going to work on how the physical portion of things is timed in there too. We are going to limit this match to 60 teams. So there will only be 60 teams.
Well, no, 59. So.
59 teams left. Yeah. So
I already told Nick that he has to save me a spot. Y'all can fight over the other 59.
We're going to restrict it to 60 teams. That's going to help a lot with the flow. That'll help a lot with making sure that we have the right shooters in the right places at the right time. Because there's nothing worse than going to try to shoot a stage and it's backed up an hour.
Yep.
Like that shit sucks. It's one of the things that like if you can't keep a flow going on a stage, it's not a good stage to run. Obviously resetting is one of the things that happens at local matches that just kind of back stuff up. We'll be shooting all steel, so we won't have resets that we have to worry about like that. So really it's just the efficiency of getting shooters in and out. And we're lucky enough that the ROs that'll be running this have a lot of good experience, and we're going to have a big team there. The whole tactical games team from our side will be there to support. So it's actually on our way to one of our other events. So we're going to go there and then head off to our next event after that. So excited to have everybody out there and to help promote this. And we'll do one a year as long as people keep on coming to them.
Yep.
Cool. You guys got anything else? Anything else you want to add today?
Yeah, that's good. About GTI.
Yeah.
I think if people have been to GTI, I know that's easy to kind of get in a box of what we've done there for the tactical games, but think about the property completely different.
Yeah.
There are areas that like we've held events for tactical games events, like that big field in the back.
Yep.
That's actually where the targets go.
Yeah.
Where you shoot from the buildings. That's all of that area back in that swamp and stuff is where the targets go. And typically where we have people parked and stuff like that is like part of the range now.
Yeah.
So because in my mind, like right when you said GTI, I was like, man, what's going on? And then as I started thinking about it, I'm like, man, there's tons of areas you can shoot out there. So the property will be used in a completely different way than it has been in the past. And I'm excited about it. I think there's not many opportunities that you get to go 12 stories up and shoot.
Yep.
Into urban rubble piles.
Yeah. That's actually at an angle that it matters.
Yeah. No, there's cool and there's so many different levels in that facility and so many different like urban terrains in that facility, and I think it's going to be different than just a flat based sniper challenge like we've put on historically. So I'm pretty stoked about that one for sure. All good?
All good.
Good. Well, thank you guys very much for being here. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.